Welcome to the Man of Recaps. This is Westworld Season 2. At the end of Season 1, Dolores killed Westworld founder Robert Ford, and all the hosts have had restrictions on hurting humans removed, so Dolores is leading them in a robot uprising. Season 2 begins with Bernard, the head of programming, waking up 2 weeks later when the rescue crew's finally here. Remember, he just found out that he's a host himself, based on Robert Ford's old partner Arnold. Luckily, no one else knows this, or they would shoot him immediately. Turns out a whole section of the park is flooded now, and most of the hosts are dead in the water. What the heck happened here? Bernard's got no memory of it. Yes, this show continues to be extremely confusing because we're following multiple time frames again. Back on the night of the party, the hosts were running wild, the notorious milk bandits doing what they're programmed to, terrorizing people. Not all the hosts are violent now, many still just following their programming, but the humans aren't taking chances. Dolores, though, is on a murder spree. She is fully self-conscious now, remembers all the terrible things humans have ever done to her, and has no mercy for them.
These violent delights have violent ends.
One human that survived is William, the Man in Black. Most of his fellow board members are killed, but he's been shooting robots in Westworld basically his whole life. This is what he lives for. The douchebag story director, Lee Sizemore, is in a difficult spot, but he's saved by Maeve. She can still control other hosts where no one else can, and she's on a mission to rescue her fake robot daughter from her previous role before she was madam of the brothel. She recruits her love interest, the sexy outlaw Hector, as well as his right-hand woman Armistice, and the two techs, Sylvester and Felix, who are somehow still caught up in this. Bernard meets up with board member Charlotte Hale. She calls for help, but no one's coming till she can secure the data. The super secret data she stored inside Dolores' old father's head to sneak it out of the park without Ford knowing. Dolores meets up with the Confederados. She's already recruited a gang of her own, including Teddy, the master gunslinger with a heart of gold. He's not fully self-aware yet, so he doesn't really understand what's happening, but he'll follow Dolores anywhere. Dolores knows that security will be coming for them with futuristic automatic weapons, so they gotta team up to survive. But she betrays the Confederados, locks them out, and blows up the nitro, killing the hosts and humans alike. It's like, what the hell, bro? We're robots just like you. But she's like, nah, you Confederados are a bunch of douchebags. Teddy, finish him off. But Teddy's not into killing unarmed prisoners, so he lets him go, and unfortunately, he failed the test. Sorry, Teddy, I've got no use for a goody two-shoes right now. She makes a tech she captured reprogram him, and now he is full dark side, cold-blooded killer. Bernard, through much shenanigans, gets separated from Charlotte Hale, but meets up with junior programmer Elsie. It's like, hey, you're alive. I was pretty sure Ford made me kill you last season. Luckily, he just chained her up here, and she is reasonably very mad at him until she finds out he's a robot and was just acting under crazy Dr. Ford's control. They find a secret off-the-books facility run by the parent company Delos. What was Delos doing here? Remember, William and Logan bought Westworld for Delos back in Season 1. Logan's father, James Delos, was not impressed with their investment in a robot Western theme park, but William convinced him the theme park is not the point. Turns out Delos is dying of some disease, and they're planning to put his mind in a new robot body. First, they just have a little interview to establish fidelity, which means that after he's a robot, they'll have the exact same conversation. And turns out this is the after interview. It worked! I'm a robot now. I cheated death. But unfortunately, he can't go home. See, right at this point in the conversation is where he always starts breaking down. It's like, don't worry, I know we'll figure it out soon. Let's burn you up and try again. But years go by, William's grown up into Ed Harris, and they still never figured it out. In fact, William's shutting down the program for now. It's like, you're a terrible person anyway, and no one's even left alive who wants you back. So he doesn't bother burning him this time, he just leaves him there. So in the present, Bernard and Elsie find Robot Delos totally out of his mind. They go ahead and set the fire. Present day William goes and saves his old robot best friend Lawrence. A funny running joke from Season 1. His mission is to get to the Forge, the big server room where they're storing all the data they've collected on guests over the years, and destroy it. They stop by Lawrence's hometown, but the surviving Confederados have taken it over. Men in Black figures he may as well ditch Lawrence and join up with them. But when they're tormenting Lawrence and his family, he's like, oh, I kind of want to be the good guy this time. He has one of the coolest Western lines ever.
You think you know death? You didn't recognize him sitting across from you this whole time.
Boom, yeah, does what he does best and shoots up all these Confederados. Now, I wouldn't say his alignment's shifted to good. He is still a psychopath who makes this guy drink the nitro and then explodes him. So maybe he's in the chaotic neutral range. Maeve and her party are on their quest when they're attacked by a samurai. Yeah, Samurai World was teased in Season 1, and now we're going there. They all get a little deja vu, though, as this guy's robbing the bank the same way Hector always does. Lee Sizemore Sizemore's like, yeah, I may have borrowed from Westworld a little bit. So they're on a side quest to protect Maeve's doppelganger's daughter from the Shogun who kills her. So during the geisha's dance, she kills the Shogun. They're gonna be executed, but Maeve logs into the Wi-Fi and is able to control other hosts now without speaking. She has all the Shogun's men kill each other, then picks up the katana for an epic action sequence that unfortunately happens off screen. Bernard and Elsie trying to reboot the system, but they have to go into the cradle where all the host backups are held. Bernard plugs himself in, and it's a virtual Westworld where all the hosts are just going about their business. But there is someone who doesn't belong, Robert Ford! Yeah, he's the ghost in the machine. He had Bernard make a copy of his mind and plug him in here a while back. The human mind copies always fail once you put him in a body, but here in the virtual world, he's going strong. Bernard's like, okay, Ford, at the end of season 1, we still had no idea what your motivations were. Are you gonna tell us? But he's like, nope, it's still gonna be totally ambiguous. I am, though, gonna need to hitch a ride in your body. So now Bernard's got virtual Ford in his head, and if he doesn't follow his orders, he can briefly take full control. Meanwhile, Charlotte Hale finally found Dolores' dad, so the rescue's coming in. Except as soon as they get there, something's wrong. Dolores' crew has unhooked the locomotive and is crashing it into the headquarters. So they bust in, ready for a robot-human showdown. Unfortunately, the robots are in disguise and basically wipe them all out. Dolores finds her dad, but his head is too jumbled, he's beyond repair, so she just takes his brain. William's on his quest when he runs into a mysterious rider, his daughter. Turns out she was vacationing in yet another part of the park, a colonial India world. The hosts there started killing guests too, including the tigers, but she managed to get away. She's like, hey dad, I found you, let's get out of here, but he doesn't believe it's really her. He thinks she's a robot built by Ford sent to torment him, so he ditches her immediately. Meanwhile, Maeve finally finds her daughter, a beautiful reunion, except of course she's been replaced by a new robot mom. Just then, the savage Ghost Nation tribe rolls up, so it's a big ol' fight. Maeve and her daughter hide in their house, and who should walk in but the Man in Black? It was this same moment in the past where he first killed her daughter and awakened Maeve's consciousness. Maeve's like, this time I'm shooting you. Lawrence goes to save him. Hey, he saved my family. Maeve's like, maybe this time, darling, but she unlocks his memories of the past where he's killed his family. So Lawrence turns on William, but before he can finish him, he gets shot. A rescue team's arrived. Lee Sizemore figured it was finally time to call for a pickup, but they shoot down Maeve before he can stop him. He didn't mean for her to get hurt. They're a terrible rescue team. They don't notice the boss man dying in the dirt. He's found by Ghost Nation guy, but he doesn't kill him. Turns out he's a pacifist who gets a whole episode dedicated to his backstory. He used to be part of a nice peaceful Indian tribe until they decided that was boring and reprogrammed him as something more fun, but he was actually among the first hosts to discover the maze and become self-aware. He had a whole adventure and love story, but long story short, he wants to stop Dolores from killing everyone. In fact, his tribe confronts her like, hey, stop killing people, and she's like, I don't think so, sick 'em, Teddy. But finally, Teddy becomes self-aware, remembers he's not a cold-blooded killer. He draws his gun, and Dolores is like, come on, Teddy, you're not gonna hurt me. He's like, no, Dolores, I could never hurt you, but I can't help you anymore, so Teddy kills himself! Oh! Even though Dolores is full Mad Queen Daenerys these days, she still loved her Jon Snow. William's daughter eventually picks him up, and we get his backstory. His wife had a lot of issues, including a drinking problem, mainly because she could tell he was a secret sociopath. One day she saw his Westworld records of all the terrible things he's done, and this was too much for her, she killed herself. His daughter's like, yeah, I saw your records too, you have some problems. Just then a rescue team arrives, but William shoots them all down. It's like, what the hell, Dad? Those were real people. He's like, no, they weren't, and neither are you. Oh, shoots his daughter. He's like, I know you're lying, Ford. My daughter never saw my Westworld records. But turns out she did. Her mother secretly left them for her. So William realizes he did just kill his real-life daughter. So he's gonna kill himself, but then he thinks, wait a second, what if none of this is real? And he sits down to check if he's a robot. Dolores finds him there, realizing that he is in fact real, and she's like, come on, get up, I need your help. Turns out she wants to go to the forge also. Bernard is heading there too. He's sick of Ford in his head though, so he manages to delete him. These three meet up. William figures it's a good time to betray Dolores, but this time she's the one who's immune to bullets. His last shot backfires, and she leaves him there to bleed out. So Dolores and Bernard go down to the forge. The data on her father's brain was the access key. She and Bernard plug themselves into the server, where the program greets them as Logan Delos. He's like, hey guys, yeah, my job was to decode all the data of what the humans did when they came to the park, and then use it to build an accurate program for their brain. Turns out the human mind is deceptively simple. We are just dumb animals who think we're smart, but are basically just just working on instinct. In fact, the code for a person fits into a real slim little book. And he's got a library full of them, every guest that's ever come to Westworld. This is what Dolores is after. She starts speed reading them all because she wants to understand humanity so she can go conquer them. And turns out Bernard was here before, under Ford's control, and created a virtual paradise for all the hosts to live in peace. Many hosts, in fact, are on their way. It's part of the Ghost Nation guys' thing that a door to another world would be here. And now that Bernard's turned it on, boom, the door's open for them. It scans in their mind, but drops their body off the cliff. But hey, who needs a body when your brain's in paradise? Dolores doesn't like it though. She thinks it's just another cage to keep the hosts oppressed and wants to delete it. Bernard pulls a gun on her, like, hey, they deserve the choice to live in peace if they want. Dolores ain't backing down, so Bernard shoots her. Meanwhile, the humans have Maeve, and they figure out how she's controlling other hosts. They program that into Clementine and have her send out a signal for all hosts to kill each other. Yes, it is a robot zombie virus. Maeve's friends bust in to rescue her, but she rescues herself, causes a stampede with the robot bulls. They end up pinned down, and Hector's like, you go, I'll hold them off. He starts giving the epic speech he never got to finish in season 1, but he's interrupted again. Lee Sizemore's like, hey, I feel bad for betraying Maeve earlier, and anyway, I wrote that speech. So he delivers his epic speech while making a final stand. A questionable decision because as a human, he can die permanently and indeed goes down in a hail of gunfire. Maeve and friends get to the door, but right behind them is death on a pale horse. It's Clementine causing an epic all-out brawl. Maeve finds her daughter and channels Neo from the Matrix, stops the fight just long enough for her daughter to escape. Ghost Nation guy too, if you care about him. But someone finally shoots her and she's down for good. Bernard canceled the deletion, but he can't stop the waters rising, so that's why this whole place floods. But when he sees the humans slaughtered all the hosts, it's like, why? They weren't hurting anyone, they were leaving. Elsie's like, I don't know, man, they were killer robots, I don't feel bad. In fact, she doesn't trust Bernard anymore either, gonna probably shut him down too. First she confronts Charlotte Hale, like, hey, you were illegally monitoring guests and creating virtual copies of their brains, I'm gonna turn you in. She's like, okay, Ned Stark, why would you tell me first? When you play the Game of Thrones, you win or you die. Bernard's like, wow, humans really are the worst, so he summons an imaginary Robert Ford. He's like, hey, the humans probably just gonna kill us all, what do I do? And imaginary Ford's like, don't worry, I got just the plan. So in the 2 weeks later story, they eventually realize Bernard's a robot. They have him lead them back down to the forge where they finally get the data they've been after this whole time. But what? Charlotte Hale starts shooting everyone? Why would she do this? Oh, Bernard's memory's coming back. He and imaginary Ford secretly built a new host, a robot copy of Charlotte Hale, and put in Dolores's mind. Then Bernard scrambled his own memories so no one could find out. So future Charlotte Hale has been Dolores this whole time. She's like, hey, thanks Bernard for the revive. In fact, you've made me rethink this virtual world thing. She uploads Teddy's mind into it and transfers all their data to the cloud where they can live happily ever after. She's got other plans for Bernard though. She kills him. And so the park's basically cleaned up now. They're evacuating the last of the survivors. Everyone believes Dolores is Charlotte, but they're still taking no chances with robots getting off the island. But she meets up with Ashley Stubbs, the security guy we thought died in season 1. He had a little part this season in the 2 weeks later storyline. He has an incredibly vague conversation with her that implies he maybe knows she's Dolores, or maybe he's a host himself, or maybe he's just really bad at his job because he waves her on through. So Dolores, as Charlotte Hale, heading for the real world. Sylvester and Felix both survive and will almost certainly resurrect Maeve. The Man in Black survived this too, so William will be back. In fact, he had an after the credits scene where he followed Dolores and Bernard down into the forge, but it was all abandoned already. This must be years later. And his daughter was there waiting for him. It's a fidelity test situation. So this is either the future or he's dead or a robot. Anyway, Dolores managed to smuggle out a few host brains with her, and one of them's Bernard. She rebuilds him in the real world and is like, okay, I owed you one. This was a freebie, but I am still on my mission to wipe out or enslave humanity, and I feel like you're gonna want to stop me on that, so we'll be enemies in season 3. So Bernard's in the human world out to forge his own destiny, and that's how Westworld season 2 comes to an end. If you like this recap, hit that subscribe button. I'm bringing you the best recaps of TV and movies, so don't miss out.